Hey guys, it's Liz from blueandhazel.com and welcome to my homeschool channel. Today I want to chat with you about narrations because this is just a huge part in a Charlotte Mason homeschool, and we are actually new to it and in the trenches of learning how to do this. And so I wanted to just share our experience and chat with you a little bit if you are new or if you are considering starting a Charlotte Mason homeschool, just having a realistic view of what this looks like to actually use in real life. And so for us, we have a year 1, a year 3, and a year 4 using Ambleside Online. And so we have totally different narrations coming in from my kids. I have a really super wordy one. I have a, less wordy kiddo, and then I have a brand new one who has a hard time paying attention and sitting still, and he's brand new and 6 and doesn't, know how to narrate super well yet. So we've kind of got the whole range right now. And the first thing I will say is I read the book No and Tell. It was so incredibly helpful. It held my hand through understanding the point of narration, understanding what narration is and isn't, kind of the timeline of where you're going with it, going from, just beginning oral narration to oral narration plus written narration to oral narration, written narration, and composition. So it helped me to kind of see how this one very simple seeming thing transitions into harder things and what it's doing in the child's brain that is so impactful and important in their processing information. So first of all, what is narration? Narration is telling back what you know, and you cannot tell back what you don't know. And it's actually a really hard practice to learn how to do. I've tried doing it myself, and wow, it's just a hard skill. You have to pull a lot of information from your mind of what you heard. You have to order it in your mind. You have to decide what pieces are important to tell back and what's not. And you have to try to remember some things like names and dates. And it's just that you cannot be a passive listener. You have to be a really active listener. And so if a child knows that they have to narrate, and I've been really clear with my kids that every school reading we do, they have to narrate. Every free read they do, or just family read, they do not have to narrate. So they're always checking in with me, do I have to narrate? And the reason is because they know if I say yes, if it's a school reading, it's always yes. They know that they're gonna have to pay really close attention. And so that they can tell back. Otherwise, they can just kind of go into la la land a little bit. So as far as how narrations have been going for us, I'll just give you a realistic kind of rundown real quick. So when we first started, it was kind of hard for everybody. And I just followed No and Tell's instructions when my children didn't necessarily know what I was asking of them. I narrated for them. So for all of them, year 1, 3, and 4, I did this for all of them. I read their school reading, and then I said, okay, I know you don't know what narrating is yet, so listen, I'm gonna do it for you. And so I would give them a quick rundown of, just what I had read, and basically summarized it in my own words, what I had just read to them. And so they have an idea then what narration is. Now, I've done that multiple times for especially my 6-year-old, because sometimes he gets really frustrated and overwhelmed or just down on himself and just mad even, I don't remember, or some other kid will be talking in the background and it really breaks his attention, and so he'll be like, Mom, I couldn't understand, they were talking. And so I'll say, okay, I'll narrate for you right this portion, and then you're gonna listen in and narrate the next portion. And so that's something, just being an example for him, that has really helped him. Now my year 3 and year 4, I don't have to do that for them ever. They are able to narrate pretty well now, even just after 12 weeks of practicing. So that has been a big learning curve. Another thing that has been super helpful, especially at first, and especially for my year 1 and 3, who just couldn't take as much material all at once before narrating, is we would do about 1 paragraph at a time. And so they were able to digest less material and narrate that, and then we would move on and do the next paragraph, and they could narrate that. And so their narration would obviously be shorter because there was less to say and less happening in, say, a paragraph than a page. But that's totally fine and totally okay with narrating. And No and Tell goes into detail about that. So I knew and felt like with confidence that this was normal and this was okay to chunk it up. Now, there are some people who also would say, you know, if your 6-year-old is not able to do a paragraph, then start with a sentence and have them tell you back that. I kind of found that that was like overkill, really tedious, not much to tell back in one sentence oftentimes. So I just tried really hard to kind of keep it in paragraph form for him. If it was a super long paragraph, then maybe chunk it up into like shorter. And then, you know, if you're doing like that, then they're doing several narrations per book reading. So that can get tiring for them too. So honestly, there were times when like I would allow my 6-year-old to say narrate once little section, then I'd read and he'd narrate the next little section, and then I'd say, okay, we're about done with our story. I will finish this up. Now, I know you're not supposed to do that, but I would sometimes just give his brain a little break. If he was trying hard and doing well and feeling overwhelmed, I would say, okay, we're almost done. I'll finish this out and then I'll narrate the last piece, or, you know, just listen in from here on out or something. So we did do that. I know that's not necessarily recommended, but just being honest. So, so then, yeah, same for my year 3. Especially when she was brand new to it, I would have to read smaller pages. Now, she was able to quickly, you know, within a month or so, she was able to kind of work up to say like a whole page before narrating, especially things like Princess and the Goblin. You know, she was able to let me read a whole page, but she would kind of get worried that she would forget. And so she'd say, tell me when the page is up so I can narrate. And so I would try to honor that and let her narrate, you know, 2 or 3 times for that one book reading as we flipped the pages. And that really helped her just to know that she wouldn't have to remember the whole chapter. Now, my year 4, he is, we kind of started shorter as well, like every page or so, but then really he was getting better enough, like he was grasping enough of the details and telling me back enough of the details, which is really how I was able to see, like, is he comprehending this? Like you can tell if they're comprehending it by their narrations. And so, you know, I just would try to go a whole reading, you know, or a few pages at least for him, or the whole chapter, and then have him narrate that back. And that's been fine for him. He's doing awesome. So we're just kind of flying through that with him. Now, 4th grade, year 4 is the year where you go from oral narration to written narration. And I decided that we were going to start term 1 only doing oral narration. Term 2, I think he's ready for written narration because his oral narrations are awesome and he knows what narration is now. So I know what to expect for that. Once we start that, I'm not expecting his written narrations to be the same length initially as his oral narrations, because writing is hard. Putting your thoughts on paper is hard. And so that is going to be a transition for him in term 2. We're going to try that a little bit. We'll try 1 written narration per week with him. But up until this point, term 1, the first 12 weeks, he's only done oral narration. And same with my year 3, only oral narration, and year 1, of course, only oral narration. So anyways, that is my experience so far using oral narration with the kids. I have seen such an improvement. My husband has noticed a huge improvement with the kids, and my 6-year-old is definitely still learning. I think it's going to take him the whole year. For him, learning how to sit still is hard. Having 1 to 2 a day max is probably, what is on par for what he can do. And if he can't remember anything, I'll try to ask him some open-ended questions that let him expand on something without needing a specific answer. So, can you tell me more about blank? Or tell me what happened after blank. And so that he kind of has a starting point to go from. But if he completely blanks and doesn't know anything, which happens sometimes with him, honestly, pretty often still, like, then I'll say, okay, mommy's gonna narrate right now, and I want you to pay better attention next time. And so he'll get at least an example of what we read in a narration, and then try again next time. Now, some things that I read in Know and Tell, really never to do, and I have really tried to stick to this with narration, is to not correct their narrations. unless there's something that's completely just false that they add in, or being really silly and adding in details that aren't part of the narrating. Basically, I'm not going to correct their narration. And so I'm not going to interject. I'm not going to have a conversation with them while they're narrating. I simply listen, I let them finish, and then I say, good job. All right, let's go do the next thing. And so if it's not a very good narration or too short, I'll say, oh, come on, you can give me something else, or you can give me one more thing, or well, tell me more about, this. And so a lot of times, like one of my kids, she likes to try to keep it short, and I'll kind of squeeze some more out of her, but I don't interrupt and I don't ask specific questions that require specific answers. And I really just want them to do the hard work. The other thing I'm tempted to do all the time is to just read the book and not have them narrate. But I know that the hard work of what they're doing in school actually is narration. They're taking the information that they're reading and they're using so much mental power to think about what they read, put it into words, order it, tell me what they remember, and that is cementing it in their brains for later. And so I know that if I skip that, I'm really doing them a huge disservice in school, because it's a big part of their learning process, I guess. And so one last thing I wanted to mention is we had a really tough time in our house with narrations with interruptions. So I personally cannot concentrate and remember details, especially if I know I have to narrate. I cannot do that with distraction and background noise and conversations going on, or a toddler screaming like mom, mama, or something, and so my kids are the same way. And I think that's really common and a huge hurdle that you have to figure out in your homeschool if you have multiple kids or toddlers or just a lot going on. So what we tried kind of that worked well was I would take one child to a quiet place, do the reading with that child in a quiet place while they narrated back to me. And then I would sometimes do 2 readings in a row in that quiet place if I could. And while I was doing that, somebody was on duty with my toddler, making sure he was safe, playing with him. It's not a hugely long period of time, and I can kind of hear and tell what's going on a little bit, but like they would basically, one of the big kids would be on with my 2-year-old while I was listening to narrations or reading to the other kids. And so it just gave us the ability to to concentrate, I guess. So that was really helpful. Sometimes we go outside actually, and that was beautiful. I loved doing our readings and narrations outside if it was nice. But that was probably the biggest hurdle, because literally they can't listen and concentrate, and then they can't tell me back anything if it's so just distracting for them that they can't listen in. So hope this was helpful for you, and if you enjoyed it, please give this a thumbs up. Let me know how your narration has been. Please drop any questions you have about narration, and be sure to check out the link for Know and Tell. It will be your best friend doing this in your homeschool.